first podcast of 2020, we're going to take a deeper dive and look into how important it is for your business to find a niche. And we're going to talk about what is to come for the rest of 2020.
Welcome to the Home Service Toolbox, a podcast dedicated to helping home service providers. Every Wednesday, your hosts, Brian and Olivia, will interview leading experts in both the home service field as well as companies who support the small business owner. Our guests will help you nail down what will and what won't work to grow your business. Whether you're on a job site or taking a break, there's no better time to sharpen your small business skills.
Well, welcome to our 18th episode of Season 2. Actually, it's Season 2, the first episode of Season 2, but it's 18th episode of our podcast. And if you've been a listener for any period of time, that was definitely a different intro. You probably were thinking that you would be listening to the Growth Made Simple podcast, but don't be alarmed because we are the same folks behind the Growth Made Simple podcast, but we've changed our name. And so we changed our name to the Home Service Toolbox. And you might be wondering, what's the big deal? Why are we changing our name? And that's a great question. And that's the reason why today we're going to be talking about the niche and why it's important to get smaller to grow your business. But before we do, we got to dive into some questions about the podcast before we get into some great content. And there's a lot to update because we have been on sort of a hiatus for about 2 months, and a lot has changed. First and foremost, we have a brand new co-host, Olivia. So welcome everyone. No, not welcome everyone. Welcome Olivia to the podcast.
If you want to welcome everyone, that's a nice way to introduce me, I guess, yeah. Brian. But thank you for that lovely introduction. I'm Olivia, and I'm the content writer here at New. So I like to think of myself as the wordsmith expert and writer extraordinaire here, and the leading social butterfly of the office.
Yeah, we have a team of extroverts. We don't like to leave our offices, and we
you
like
mean
Slack.
Introverts. I am the extrovert.
Yes. Did I say it up
you
backwards?
said extroverts. If you want to hype yourselves up, I appreciate it. I like to think I've made them extroverts a little bit since I've gotten here over the last 6 months. But let's be honest.
Yeah.
I carry the team when it comes to social things.
You do indeed, and we appreciate that. What's your other crown? We have another job for you.
I'm the event planner, the in-house event planner. And so far, no events have gone according to plan since I've gotten here.
So what does that say about you?
Okay, well, to be fair, Amanda, who we love, had a beautiful baby girl. Mm-hmm. So that definitely put a wrench in a couple things. Okay. Because Emma, she's 2 months old. She needs a lot of help. And she's probably my favorite person on the team. Not going to lie.
Yes, she does make a few appearances on our Slack channel with some amazing photos.
Yes.
But besides having Olivia, as we mentioned, we've renamed and rebranded from Growth Made Simple to the Home Service Toolbox. And last time we were recording, we recorded probably about twice a month, but we're going weekly. And the reason why we want to go weekly is because we want to get more content out to our audience. And our guests are going to be phenomenal. We have guests already booked through April, which if you were behind the scenes on our first podcast, we were literally going day by day, week by week. We were not as organized as we are this time around. But some of the guests that we have upcoming, we have the founder of B&I coming on. We have some other business owners. So we're going to have two types of guests every week, probably going back and forth. Some weeks we're going to have home service provider owners of businesses because we believe that the best way to learn is to hear how other businesses have been successful. And we believe that creating an audience around this home service is a great way to build this community. And the second guests are going to be people who are supporting the home service provider. So basically tools and companies that help provide support to do your business even better. So what are your thoughts just about those types of guests on this podcast?
I feel like it's going to be a great educational experience, not just for our listeners, but for us, especially myself as someone who's still so new, I feel like, to the home service industry world, and especially honing down on what that looks like and identifying different companies. And even though I write so much about all these different fields, I feel like it's such a learning experience every single time. And I'm going to, I feel like, learn a lot, and I think going to be a lot of different topics we'll tackle, and I'm excited.
Yeah, and that's the whole point of doing this podcast. We want to create community, and we want to learn from one another, and we're excited about that. In addition to having a podcast, we are recording everything live. So there's good things and bad things about recording live. We're not a TV broadcast where we've been doing this 1,000 times, but you're going to see the real deal behind the scenes of what it takes to run something like this. And so we are actually doing this not only live audio, but live video. So we will be streaming this on Facebook and putting everything on YouTube and LinkedIn. So you're going to be able to watch what we're actually doing behind the audio, in addition to hearing us on all your traditional podcasting tools. So are you excited about the whole video thing?
I mean, I don't know anyone who necessarily loves to see themselves on video, as I'm quickly learning since I'm so behind the screen, literally typing away most days. But I think everyone getting to see us live, they get to actually make connections. And personally, when I'm listening to podcasts, it's so hard for me to visualize who's talking sometimes. And so I think getting to see us, not only you get to make that connection for, oh, I'm Olivia, you're Brian, and we become a little bit more familiar to you guys, but also you get to see us have more witty banter, and I talk with my hands, so maybe it'll be a little funny, it'll be a little interesting, it'll add a new dimension to the podcast, so I think it'll be good.
And a whole new channel, so it's great to get on the Apple Podcasts and Spotify, but so many people are listening and watching educational pieces, on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn, so we're excited about that. So we're going to come back in just a second. We're going to listen to a quick commercial, but then we're going to come back and dive into all of our content.
Throughout our podcast, you'll hear us discuss a variety of marketing tools, but one of our favorites is Google My Business. The exclusive features Google My Business has to offer are a fundamental part of growing your business and launching a successful marketing campaign. Do you want to learn how to unlock all the secrets of Google My Business and grow your customer base? Check out our free webinar, Unlock the Secrets of Google My Business, under newagency.com/unlock. That is nuagency.com/unlock.
Well, welcome back to the newest podcast to you guys. There was definitely a pause of me trying to get my words into here, and if you guys were watching on video, you could see that awkward pause. But we were a podcast called Growth Made Simple, and now we are called Home Service Toolbox, and we're excited about this year's content. But the content for today is talking about how if you can get your company smaller and more focused, you can actually grow your company bigger. And that's definitely a dichotomy and something that most people don't think about. I remember talking to one of my mentors with HubSpot, and they said in order to speed up, sometimes you got to slow down. And it's that same kind of concept. Sometimes you got to get smaller to actually grow bigger. And so we're talking about the concept of niching down. And so niche sometimes is also mentioned as niche. So Olivia, do you have a way, because you're the wordsmith, like, do you have a preference on how you say that?
I always say niche. I don't know why. I just gravitate towards the word niche. Niche sounds it doesn't roll off the tongue as nicely. My grandmother would probably disagree with me, considering she was the grammar police and basically the rhyme or reason for all of my wordsmithing capabilities that I now possess. But I'm going to go with niche.
Okay. So for the rest of at least today's podcast, we will talk about the niche. And so, for us as a company, we have worn many different hats. We started 20 years ago as a printing company. About 10 years ago, we brought the web division into the business. We were cranking out hundreds of websites. We're doing SEO. And we found ourselves in a unique place. We found ourselves, lots of people were coming to want to work with us. And there are two kinds of businesses, either companies that couldn't afford us or companies that wanted something more than we could provide. And so we had a choice. We had a choice to either outsource and, continue doing the work that we're doing, or to learn more. And, for those that know us, the learning more is definitely something that was much more advantageous, much more interesting to us. And so we chose to niche down. And so we began probably a 3 or 4, maybe even 5-year journey of moving from a company that did printing and graphic design and website design and basically project-based work to a company who just works with a handful of companies that are on retainer. And so that was not an overnight process, and it's probably one of the hardest things we've ever done as a company. But we were generalists before. And so by doing that, we became specialists in what we do now. But we took it one step further, and that's what this whole podcast is about, the home service industry. So, Olivia, we when we began to understand how many different websites we had done hundreds of websites over the years, and 70% of them had become or websites in the home service industry. And so we felt this kind of calling, because we were very involved with the family, to help businesses in this home service industry. So it's kind of like the backstory about how we got into niche. But, as a new employee and someone that was obviously not in this industry before you got here, what were your thoughts coming in as a new employee to how we had kind of grown and changed over the years?
Well, as someone who shifted from being a kindergarten teacher and wiping snot off of her sleeves for the majority of her day to
You've
someone...
not done that here, have you?
No, thank
Okay,
goodness.
all right.
I mean, unless Emma comes back at any point in time, I feel like that would be the one exception. But luckily not here yet. So switching from that gear into sitting and writing and really immersing myself into the whole home service industry for the first time, as someone, and also as someone who's unfamiliar to the world of marketing up until a couple months ago, I think, niching down and seeing this whole side of new as you've switched gears, not that I was privy to any of the previous experiences, but even within the last 6 months, seeing how much we've grown and evolved and really been able to find our voice and find our focus and even sharpen those tools in our own toolbox.
We need to have like a drum.
I know.
Like,
Every time I make a pun or an inside reference, just we gotta work on that, because
Okay.
it'll happen a lot, guys. I'm gonna warn you now. But I think just in these last 6 months, I've already seen exponential growth. And as someone who grew up in a home service environment with my father being involved in hydro seeding and landscaping, without having a niche or a purpose or a direction for a long time, he struggled to find leads and maintain contacts, and seeing how he had to learn the hard way and seeing how we're able to eliminate some of that friction for our clients and grow as a company ourselves and then translate that into our own clients. Like, I just think it's so powerful and it's so wonderful to be a part of.
So it sounds like, by being generalists, there was some friction, there was some frustration even with your father's, business. And I think that's where we came with our own business. There had become to a point where we grew, we were successful, but we were hitting kind of roadblocks. And so that frustration could have been solved by niching down. Now, you can't niche down overnight, and it's going to be a much slower pace on growth. But once you niche down, you can, and you found your niche, you're going to be able to grow your business exponentially, and that's kind of what you're speaking about. So we have 4 different things that we believe that niching down helps with. So the first one is messaging, and messaging is not just like the text message that you're sending your coworker, your friend, or your spouse. This messaging is kind of the external message that a company is providing to their audience. So, as a content writer, talk to us a little bit about the importance of messaging and what that's going to bring to someone that's interacting with a business.
Well, for me, message is everything. I mean, we start with, for instance, a blog post, and I have a topic, and the whole point of that topic is to convey a clear and concise and helpful, informative message to the reader. And without that message, without that guidance, your reader's lost. So as a company taking that to a bigger message, without that clarity, without that guidance, without that niche, you sort of get lost in translation. So I think having that clear message is ultimately what, like we talked about, eliminates that friction, gets things across, makes things clear, and ultimately keeps customers engaged. And they know exactly what you're talking about. They know exactly what kind of services you're going to provide. They know exactly what kind of direction you're going to take them in. And ultimately, that's what they're looking for, because they come on maybe thinking they might want something or they have a couple ideas in mind, but without that clarity, without that awesome message going across, like, they're just going to get lost in the shuffle, and that's just not what they're looking for. So
Yeah, and so I think with messaging, what you're describing is something that, you know, breeds confidence. It really, you know, if you're talking to a potential prospect, you know, they're going to go with the person that they trust, and the person that is the most confident that they can do the job for you. And so having clarity in that. And so we've mentioned the word clarity a couple times, and that's kind of our second point. So we've broken down clarity into four buckets, and the first bucket is, I think, clarity as a business owner. So, you know, I can speak from that side. There's been so many times as a business owner that I'm not quite sure what I'm supposed to be doing and which direction do we go. There's you know, in today's world, you know, it's often said that it's never been easier to start a business, but it's also never been harder to be successful. And I think one of the reasons why it's so hard to be successful is because there's so many different avenues we can take. You know, we can go in any direction. You know, we can not only start any kind of business, but we can go anywhere in the world with a snap of a button and get there. And so the clarity that it provides me as a business owner allows me to be able to narrow my focus, narrow my learning, narrow my drive every day. So when I get up in the morning on a Monday morning and I'm not quite sure what to do, I'm able to have that clarity. So the other kind of side is from the team side. So you're an employee. So if I'm able as a business owner and as your, you know, employer, able to have that clarity, what type of clarity does bringing a niche down to the particular business help a team?
I definitely think it helps from a communication standpoint, because once we're all on the same page based on the message you've relayed to us, then we can communicate internally. We have a smoother transition. We have great goals for ourselves as a team, individually, what needs to be done for the day. And honestly, same kind of thing. When I wake up on a Monday morning, I'm like, all right, these are my buckets now based on what I have to achieve, and these are like my goals in terms of our clients. And being able to have that niche means I can have a sense of clarity in my writing and in my goals, and just be able to communicate better. And honestly, I feel like that gets a great message across to our clients and potential leads, because without my clarity as a team member, how are our leads and our clients supposed to understand what we want unless we can communicate that to them?
Yeah, and you mentioned earlier, you know, without a niche, you're lost. And so, you know, when you come to work, you know what you're supposed to do with that clarity for the most part, right?
Yes, and then I take that creative juices and run with it a little bit. So there might be a little bit of leeway in that, but having that niche, it really does help me get the juices flowing, think about what I want to do, think about what goals and what ideas I can bring to our clients and their content, and then expand that within our own company, which is great creative freedom.
So that's kind of internal. So we've talked about the business owner and we talked about the team, but clarity helps external, and it helps with the prospecting and helps with the clients that you're going to be working with. So when you're prospecting and you're talking to leads, you know, you have the confidence to be able to speak to what you do. And that's going to come to another point, but it allows you to be an expert in what you do. I remember, you know, talking to leads since we've made this change, and so often when they are calling, they're trying to help solve a problem they have. And when I tell them that we are experts in reaching their audience and we are experts in helping home service providers, if I'm on the phone with them, I can hear the sigh of relief, because they have been looking for a solution, and it's very possible they've called other people. And so by niching down, if you are a remodeler, or if you are an HVAC company, it's very easy to think about, okay, do I go residential, commercial? Well, let's just do it all. I mean, it's all the same, right? And it's going to be important to be able to not say you do everything, but be able to say to the person that's, the answering the phone and on the other side, that you can give that confidence that you are really able to help them. And so when you think about clients, so you've already earned their business, what would you say, Olivia, is the clarity that a client's going to receive once they've heard the message and they've become on board for one little product? But what's the clarity how is clarity going to help them maybe maintaining that business with a client?
Well, they're always going to know moving forward, okay, so this is their message. This is what they've conveyed to me. They're experts in their field. And then when it comes to new projects or new developments, oh, hey, I already know, I've already worked with them before. I already have that insight. I already have that guidance. And ultimately, it's all about them being able to guide you down a path that you already know you want to take, but you might not always be able to access on your own. So having that relationship and then being able to be guided further down that line and go back for additional services or new projects or new work and keeping that relationship open, you maintain their trust. And I think ultimately that's the biggest thing. And you get to see someone who's passionate about what they do and gets to communicate that message to you and love what they do and help you grow and see that success firsthand. And I think that's the biggest thing that we get to do for our clients, is see their development success and then translating that into homeowner success and seeing their projects get fulfilled and tackle new things every day that they don't know about the home. I mean, that's just the best.
And what you're kind of talking about is hinting at is the lifetime value. So, as a customer, if you're a business and you're trying to earn a new lead and they become a customer, you want them to do repeat business with you. And so you spent some money to get that customer, but the lifetime value of that customer can go exponentially through the roof if they keep buying from you. Even if it's, a year apart or even a couple years apart, you earn that client. And so you want them to repeat business with you. And so by providing that clarity that you're speaking about, they are understanding very clear about what they do. And then they're going to give referrals, which is even better.
Right, and it's all because you started with that niche and that guidance, and you set them down the path for success. And that's a relationship that just keeps giving to everybody. Everybody wins, which is ultimately what we want.
Everyone except Carolina. I mean, I was trying to figure out how to bring this in. So, I'm a big Duke fan.
Oh, I heard.
And did you hear about the game?
Oh, I heard. And the first comment I said, I was with my family over the weekend, and I heard that Duke beat Chapel Hill, and I was like, man, I know what I'm going to hear on Monday.
And we didn't just beat them. Like, we were down by 13 points in the last 3 minutes, and we had a buzzer beater to send it in overtime, and then we beat them again in overtime.
Yeah.
With the buzzer beater. It was beautiful. Anyway, but so speaking about the third piece is expert. And Duke players are experts in playing basketball. But that's not the reason why we're here to talk today. We're talking about expert in our own fields. And I think that niching down allows us to really hone in on our craft. It really allows us to know what we should be educating ourselves on as a business. And so if we are able to further our education, we're going to be able to have a better expert knowledge in the services that we're providing for our clients. And the same thing with our team. I mean, for you as an employee, if you're going to start educating and taking, listening to podcasts or other material, I mean, would you say that you have a clear understanding about what you should be learning?
I would say so. If I have the right kind of resources in front of me, or in this case, I'm providing someone the right kind of resources, you're becoming an expert slowly but surely. It takes time. I mean, you're not going to become an expert overnight like we talked about, but once you sort of educate yourself a little bit or provide that education to someone else in turn, then you're clearing things up. You're beginning to learn. You're beginning to understand more about what you're getting yourself into. And ultimately, I start off as a novice every time I start a resource or a blog on something new, and then by the end, I like to think I'm an expert, hopefully. If not, sorry, but that's the goal.
But, if you're in the HVAC business or you're, in the remodeling business, niching down is going to allow you to really hone in on that craft. But when you don't know something, it's also going to allow you to bring in experts. And one of the things I have found comforting is when I'm talking to, if I'm trying to do business with someone and I need something done at my house, when they say, I can't do something, but I know someone that can, it actually gives me confidence to know that they're willing to say, look, I could do this for you, but I'm probably not going to do it well. And so I'm going to bring in someone else. And so that's a humbling experience to be able to say you can't do something, because we're in the internet world. So oftentimes people need help with email. And we know enough to be dangerous about email services and the cloud and all that good stuff. And so we always refer someone to another company, like an IT company, who can service them better, because I know that I'm probably going to make a mistake. And that mistake could actually cost me my reputation. So, by being an expert and niching down allows you to bring in people that are really experts in their own field. The last thing I think is really the reason how we got into this field. So, when we kind of looked back at all the websites we had done, we probably done 300 or 400 websites over a few years, and 70% of them found themselves in the same bucket, the home service industry. And, family is super important to our team. We've always had family first. And so it just made sense for us to niche down one step further, not only by providing marketing services for people, but also providing marketing services for the home service provider. And it's really our passion. And so passion, is what gets at least me up in the morning, especially on a Monday morning when, maybe it's rainy or, you've not slept well over the weekend or, you had a busy weekend. Passion is what's going to help your team and your company push through when things are hard. So that's kind of just, what we believe as how you can actually become a bigger business by becoming small first. So niching down is going to allow you to get to your goals faster. And so we talked about messaging, clarity, being an expert, and having passion are all great things that come from niching down. So before we tie things up in a pretty bow for this first podcast, so this is kind of your first kind of dip your toes in the water of a podcast. So what are your first thoughts, Olivia?
Well, after all of our trying technical difficulties over the past couple weeks, I definitely have to say that I'm excited for everything we have to look forward to. I think 2020 is going to be a great year for growth, and I think we have a lot of exciting things headed y'all's way, and I'm personally excited for us to just embark on this journey together. So my passion for this podcast hopefully translates to y'all, and I'm excited for what's next.
Well, great. Well, on next week's episode, we're going to have our actual first live guest of 2020, and his name is Tanner Cranfield, and he's with Magnolia Landscape Group. And the topic of that conversation is going to be around the importance of the number one. And so we're excited to hear what he believes the number one is in his business and be able to share that expertise with the rest of our audience. And so if you have been following this podcast, this journey for any period of time, we want to ask you guys for some reviews. Reviews are a great way to grow our audience, and by growing our audience, we're going to be able to bring even more content that's fresh to you as a listener. And so if you just wouldn't mind going to YouTube or iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcast, Spotify, take a moment to leave us a review. We would love to hear from you guys and appreciate that. So that's it for now. We're going to be on for our very first podcast in 48 hours. So normally we're going to record every Wednesday live at 12:15. But today we're recording on Monday. Mm-hmm. But the very first guest podcast will be in 48 hours, basically. Yeah. Actually, a little bit less now that we're past 12:15. But it doesn't really matter. 2 days from now, Wednesday at 12:15 Eastern Standard Time, you can catch us on Facebook Live as well as our podcast tools. So that'll be it for now. Thanks again.
Break time's over. But thanks for listening to the Home Service Toolbox. Keep your marketing toolbox up to date by subscribing to our podcast. We'll be here every Wednesday hammering out solutions to help your business.